Once, these jewels were the treasures of a mighty empire. Today, they are scattered across the world, priceless remnants of a lost dynasty. But how did they escape the chaos of the Russian Revolution? This is the incredible true story of how the Romanov jewels were smuggled out of Russia, surviving war, revolution, and betrayal. For the Romanovs, jewellery wasn't just decoration, it was power. Some of the world's most valuable treasures sat in their collection: diamond tiaras, emerald brooches, and Fabergé eggs encrusted with enamel and gold. But among these glittering heirlooms, I want to spotlight 3 pieces, each one a crown jewel in its own right, whispering the story of a dynasty that once ruled one of the greatest empires on earth. Imagine it, a silver and gold diadem so blinding with diamonds it seemed to carry its own light. The imperial crown of Russia, created for the coronation of Catherine the Great in 1762, wasn't just regal, it was mythic. Split into 2 hemispheres, it is encrusted with over 4,900 diamonds. At its centre sits a massive 398-carat spinel, blood red like a warning nestled beneath a shimmering cross. This crown wasn't worn lightly. When placed upon the head of a Romanov, it signalled the transfer of divine power, the very will of God upon the earth. And yet, when Nicholas II wore it for his own coronation, the grandeur of that moment was a cruel illusion. Within 2 decades, the same crown would be stored in a vault, the dynasty overthrown, and the divine right of kings reduced to a footnote in history. The crown survived. The emperor did not. Far more delicate, but no less captivating, was a piece made not for ruling, but for remembering, the diamond and sapphire ear of wheat tiara, believed to be one of Empress Alexandra Feodorovna's most cherished possessions. Its design was deceptively simple: rows of gently curving diamond stalks, shaped like golden wheat bending in the wind, graced with a colourless sapphire in its centre. Alexandra loved it. In private, it said she would stroke the tiara while sitting in silence, as if willing it to become tears she could never cry aloud. The fate of the tiara is unknown. Some believe it was dismantled. Others whisper that it's sitting in a vault. We would never know. Then there was magic, the kind only Peter Carl Fabergé could conjure. And nothing captured that enchantment quite like the coronation egg of 1896. Commissioned by Tsar Nicholas II for his new empress, the egg was a symphony of imperial splendour: gold, enamel, diamonds. Crack it open, and inside, like a Russian nesting doll, was a perfect miniature replica of the imperial coronation coach, crafted with such precision that the wheels turned and the tiny steps unfolded. This was no mere trinket. It was a love letter from the Tsar to his bride, a monument to pageantry and power, frozen in gold. Fabergé had captured the very heartbeat of the empire in miniature. Every hinge, every seam, a promise that their reign would last forever. But the power that these jewels represented was about to be shattered. Russia, 1917. An empire on the brink of collapse. The mighty Romanovs, rulers for over 300 years, are now prisoners in their own palaces. But as revolution sweeps the nation, another story unfolds in the shadows. A story of deception, courage, and one of the greatest smuggling operations in history: the escape of the Romanov jewels.
Mama, Papa has abdicated. I fear for our lives.
The road ahead is tough, and I hope we survive. But if we don't?
It was March 15th, 1917. A bitter chill hung in the Russian air, not from the snow, but from the weight of history turning. In a cramped railcar stationed in the forest of Pskov, Tsar Nicholas II, Emperor of all the Russians, put pen to paper, his hands trembling with more than just the cold. He wasn't signing a treaty, he was surrendering a dynasty. After 300 years, the Romanov reign was over. The empire, vast and gilded, collapsed into dust beneath the boots of revolutionaries. With pressure mounting from the Duma, the army, and even his own generals, Nicholas abdicated the throne, not just for himself, but for his son, the frail and haemophiliac Alexei. It was supposed to spare the boy. Instead, it sealed his fate. Desperation breeds ingenuity. Knowing they would soon be taken, the Romanov daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia, sewed diamonds into their corsets, dresses, even their boots. Each gemstone, a last hope of survival, was hidden beneath layers of fabric. But would it be enough? Exile, first Tobolsk, then Yekaterinburg. The Romanovs had become prisoners, their world reduced to cold rooms and rationed meals. Their belongings taken. The state confiscated it all. The estates, the carriages, the portraits, the court jewels. The treasures of an empire were no longer theirs. But beyond the walls of their confinement, allies still worked in secret. Loyalists, aristocrats, and foreign diplomats schemed to save not just the jewels, but the legacy of the Romanov dynasty. Behind closed doors, Alexandra wrote in her diary, Nicholas chopped wood. The girls embroidered quietly, trying to ignore the tightening noose of history. They didn't know it yet, but each sunrise in exile brought them one step closer to their final, tragic chapter.
The Ural Soviet has decided. You are to be executed immediately.
The end came swiftly. On the night of July 16th, 1918, the Romanovs were led to a basement under false pretenses, then gunfire, chaos, screams. The jewels meant to save them now acted as cruel armour. The diamonds sewn into their corsets deflected bullets, prolonging their suffering. But no jewel, no fortune could change their fate. The Romanovs were executed, and the jewels were ripped from their bodies. Some were stolen, some were melted down, others vanished, their fate unknown.
This will fetch a fortune in the West.
With the Romanovs dead, the Bolsheviks seized what remained. The imperial treasures were catalogued, some displayed, others sold to fund the Soviet regime. The fate of many jewels remains a mystery, lost to time, scattered across continents, but some did survive.
You must take them, Albert. They are safer in London than in these cursed streets.
Smuggling them out won't be easy, Grand Duchess, but I'll do it. For the family.
While some jewels were hidden on the bodies of the Romanovs, others found an escape through various channels. Albert Stopford, a British antique dealer and rumoured spy, carried a vast portion, about 244 pieces, of Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna's collection out of Russia, successfully reaching London, but not all were so lucky. Beyond Stopford, there was also a daring escape of jewels worthy of an action flick. Because in the shadows of the revolution, a new chapter began. One not of royalty, but of escape artists, secret couriers, and betrayals whispered behind locked doors. There was the Romanovs' trusted manservant, Pierre Gilliard, the Swiss tutor who had taught the imperial children French and history. When the revolution came, Gilliard risked everything to stay close to the family. After their deaths, he didn't flee. Instead, he worked to recover what he could, quietly collecting items left behind or scattered during the family's imprisonment. He eventually smuggled a few keepsakes out of Russia, not for profit, but for memory. For him, it wasn't about the jewels. It was about preserving the truth. As the 1920s dawned, exiled Russian aristocrats flooded into Paris, desperate and broke. Among them were relatives and attendants of the Romanovs, still clinging to whatever pieces they had salvaged. Jewels, once worn in ballrooms and coronation halls, were pawned in dimly lit shops on the Rue de la Paix. One tiara sold for the price of rent, an emerald necklace for a train ticket. And then there was Armand Hammer, an American businessman with connections to both Lenin and the West. In secret deals with the Soviet regime, Hammer purchased vast caches of Romanov treasures, smuggled or seized, and sold them to elite collectors in Europe and the United States. Some say he profited off imperial blood. Others call him a saviour of lost history. Each jewel saved was a story rescued. The Romanovs had perished, but their jewels, they travelled on, in vaults, in private collections, in dusty auction ledgers. They waited to be remembered, because sometimes history isn't written in books. It's etched in diamonds and passed from hand to hand, in silence. Decades later, Romanov jewels began resurfacing in auctions and private collections. Fabergé pieces once held in the hands of an empress, brooches that adorned royal gowns, traded, bought and cherished by new owners. But these gems, however beautiful, carry a tragic legacy. Some Romanov treasures found unlikely afterlives in the British royal collection. Two, in particular, glimmer with history. The Vladimir tiara, crafted for Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna, once one of the most dazzling women of the Russian court, was a triumph of elegance. Diamond loops laced with pearls, it shimmered at winter galas and imperial banquets in St. Petersburg. After the revolution, it was rescued in a daring covert mission and eventually sold to Queen Mary, the grandmother of Queen Elizabeth II. Garrod restored it. The pearls were later replaced with vivid emeralds, and for decades it became one of Queen Elizabeth II's most cherished tiaras, Russian aristocracy reimagined for a British crown. Then there's the sapphire and pearl brooch, a deep blue sapphire cradled in diamonds, with a single teardrop pearl suspended like a sigh. It once belonged to Empress Maria Feodorovna, mother of Nicholas II. In exile and mourning, her daughters sold it in 1930 to Queen Mary. In 1953, it passed to Queen Elizabeth II, who wore it at solemn occasions, its history unspoken, but never forgotten. Other Romanov jewels re-emerged years later in the hushed rooms of auction houses. In 2021, a sapphire and diamond brooch with matching earrings, once worn behind palace doors, sold through Sotheby's for nearly $900,000. But many treasures were never seen again, lost to looters, hidden in secret drawers, or swallowed by time itself. Could some still be hidden, waiting to be discovered? The Romanovs are gone, but their jewels endure. a silent testament to a fallen dynasty, to love, loss, and the unrelenting march of history. And as long as these jewels exist, so too does the memory of Russia's lost imperial family. Thank you for watching till the end. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. This video was brought to you by Sewolo magazine. For more stories, insights, and expert reviews from the world of jewellery, visit our website, sewolomag.com. Until next time, see you in the next video. Bye for now.